Yay, nice. It did change my Twitch title and category. Sweet.
Awesome.
Yay. Okay, cool. I was wondering. So I hope it does. Otherwise, that would be a little bad. Okay, cool. Well, I see us on Twitch. And cool, I see us on YouTube as well. Awesome. Alrighty. All right. Are you ready?
Let's do this.
Okay. Welcome to episode 18 of the TCCG Roundtable. We're your host, dragonrider and RonMexico. How you doing?
Hey, how's it going today? Excited to be here as always. We've got a great show to talk about.
Yeah, and there's feels like quite a bit of news and some competitive stuff to talk about. So let's start jumping into this after a quick question, because I have a question for you. We're going to talk about it a little bit with the news, but how have you been feeling with some Hearthstone stuff that's been announced? Are you pumped to play? Are you looking forward to what's coming?
Oh
Are
yeah.
like has it motivated you to play more or feel differently?
I can't wait. The anytime like an expansion is announced, the hype starts building. It's just like this is what's going to be shaping our experience in Hearthstone for probably quite some time to come. Because it's, the foundational set. This is going to be the one that's going to be around for the longest again, like Forged in the Barrens was. And they have a lot of really cool stuff coming out. Like the music theme is awesome. There's some really exciting things to look forward to, and I was already excited just because uh, the last 2 years there have been some cards that have just been hanging around for so long. They're going bye bye. We're going to see the core set rotate. There might be some problematic cards leaving, and maybe, hopefully, they bring back, the card I really want to see. Just one. Unleash the Hounds, please, please give me back my best boys, please. But like, yeah, I mean, beyond that, just super hyped in general. I've been playing a lot of Hearthstone, but that's not really different from how I always am. I'm giving like a Shock Spitter Hunter farewell tour because we're gonna lose the hero cards, uh, which just definitely props up that deck a lot. What about you, Don?
Yeah, I think this time of year for card games is really exciting. Like we had kind of the November, December time that was really exciting, right? That's when you have maybe some expansions for card games, but you also have usually like the World Championships and like end of the year tournaments for games. And then we kind of get into like that early part of the year kind of dip, I'll say, right? Like where there's not really things coming out. We're usually waiting for news or new things or the next year's competitive announcement stuff for games, and there's not usually things like competitive things to play for the card games. So it kind of dips, and especially for several of the games that do have this kind of earlier year rotation, like Hearthstone, you kind of get into this like, yeah, you're just kind of waiting, right? You're just like, okay, I'm just like ready for the next thing.
Yeah.
And so I think we're now kind of starting to get into that the like upward swing of the card game time of year now, where now we're getting all of the competitive announcements, card sets are starting to come out, we're doing all that, so it's kind of in that upward swing. It's kind of exciting. There's a lot of things going on, new card games coming out, all that kind of stuff this time of year. So it's getting very exciting. So I'm like, yes, there's news, there's things to talk about, there's tournaments starting to happen. So yeah, I am very excited. This is now like the exciting time of year, and also we're finally starting to get out of the incredibly cold, just snowy weather here, so I'm like, oh
Yeah,
yay, like,
true.
okay, it's still kind of cold, but like I see a little bit of sun. Hey,
Yep.
we're there.
Hey, March is where it like starts to ramp up, right? We were talking about that last show pretty much, where it's like, yeah, sort of like middle of March and beyond, things start to really get rolling.
Yes, yeah. So let's jump into our news and start talking about some of this. So, for our news, we do have quite a bit here, but the big thing that we'll definitely talk about is Hearthstone announced its next expansion, Festival of Legends, and it also released that patch 25.6 that we did talk about last week, which tons of things, and there was I feel like a lot announced, and we still, as you mentioned, don't even know things like the core set announcement, the next year of, like they've had Year of the Griffin or Year of the Dragon. We don't even know what that kind of stuff is. They usually do some sort of little roadmap of what is going to come out over the next 3 expansions in the new year. So we don't even know any of that kind of stuff yet. But already they announced the new sets and they have started doing some card reveals already, and then released that patch, which included the pre release stuff, but also a big patch for Battlegrounds. So lots of stuff happening for Hearthstone.
Right, yeah, absolutely. There's still more announcements to come, so just gotta stay tuned and see what happens. But we're in that cycle where it's just day after day. There might be a brand new thing to get really hyped about, and it's always fun to see.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Well, then also somewhat related to Hearthstone, but also kind of just a general thing. Hearthstone was removed from the uh, Hangzhou Asian Games following those negotiations between Blizzard and NetEase. Not being able to come to an agreement with their like contract or whatever running out. The Hearthstone China servers have been shut down. The team's been disbanded there. So with all of that happening, those Asian games did have to pull Hearthstone out of those Asian games. So kind of disappointing, especially after we saw that somewhat disappointing for many players, the kind of disappointing esports news, and then this was kind of that like maybe slight saving grace of that's something cool additionally that's happening, but now that is no longer a thing as well after that. So really kind of unfortunate news there because as far as I know, that was the only card game I think that was part of those Asian games as well. So that's a bit of a bummer.
Yeah, it really is. You can say that that was a bit predictable to see coming, given what we've already seen to this point. I think the competitive announcement you'd have to speculate is pretty connected to the fact that Blizzard and NetEase couldn't come to that agreement, losing you know basically the entire country of China is a pretty big deal for a game's overall revenue sources. They obviously decided to cut back when they couldn't make that deal, weren't going to make it through the games as well there. So yeah, it's just sad. It's sad to see. I think Possessi posted on Twitter recently that it unfortunately meant that he's not really going to continue playing Hearthstone, and that's one of Hearthstone's greats. Like done so well, he's even got his own card named after him that you can still play in the game, but the player himself will not be playing anymore, and it's just tragic.
Yeah, there's unfortunately been quite a bit of that. So yeah, that's really really sad. And even our wonderful friend, now I can only think of his first Wesley. Why can I not think of his tag here?
Oh, Lambie
Uh,
series.
Lambie series. Yeah, I was like, I can only think of his first name now. Yeah, Lambie series. We did have on the show here a little while back, but he was going to be competing in that Asian Games Hearthstone event as well, but unfortunately now not going to be a thing. So yeah, very unfortunate there. To move into some other news, talking about tons of different things coming here for Flesh and Blood. That next set, Outrider or Outsiders, excuse me, Outsiders is releasing on March 24th. So that is coming very soon. Tons of things coming out here. Marvel Snap also did announce and kind of put up an infographic about their March series drop that's coming with the next patch. So some Series 5 cards that are going to be dropped into Series 4, and then Series 4 cards that are going to be dropped into Series 3. So you can find that on their Twitter. And then for Pokemon, the Scarlet and Violet expansion is going to be releasing March 31st for the TCG. So players are looking forward to that. MTGA, we have the Shadows over Innistrad and the Eldritch Moon expansions sets that are going to be coming to MTGA on March 21st. Magic also announced that the Magic Universes Beyond set, Lord of the Rings, Tales of Middle-earth, they announced that. They did kind of like an early showcase look. There's a whole bunch of different dates that they have things going on for, whether it's kind of, sneak peeks at cards or a little bit of like early access play testing. But it looks like this whole Lord of the Rings set is not coming out until November. So it feels like very far ahead, like very early.
True.
That they are kind of doing all of this. But I
Did you hear what
know,
they planned for the Lord of the Rings set? At least like the news that I heard was that they're making only one singular card in that set as one of the things that they're doing, and it's the One Ring. It will be card one of one, um, which
wow.
is a really cool like flavor idea. It's gonna warp the hell out of the economy for the game potentially in some ways. I think someone has already put out a $100,000 bounty on that card if someone is able to find it. So that's
Wow.
really interesting and exciting. I just like came across that the other day and was like, "Whoa, that's so cool!" So yeah, that'll be interesting for Magic's new set.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely generating a lot of hype, a lot of chatter. I definitely think there's a lot of crossover in the people that are interested in Magic and also who like Lord of the Rings. So that's definitely
You
a
don't say.
big hype. Yeah, I know. Imagine that. So lots of chatter about that, and kind of cool. Looking at some of those like sneak peek preview things. They also did talk about. That there are kind of different variations of the characters, right? So even like there's different artwork and different variations for like Smeagol, right? Where they're going to have various Gollum cards. There's a couple different variations of like Aragorn and Frodo. They were showing multiple like Frodo ones. The kind of sneak peek weekly MTG podcast that they were talking about a lot of these. They were also kind of saying that some of these they really wanted to capture kind of specific like big moments for the characters. So like Frodo standing, over the lava at Mount Doom, right? Like deciding if he's gonna throw in the ring. So there's a couple different points like that. So just really kind of cool, interesting to see that. I know there's been a lot of mixed opinions about the whole these universes beyond sets and if people have liked them or not liked them, but definitely seems like this is one that so far people are really excited about.
Yeah, definitely. You'll always get your mix of people who are like purists and then people who are excited about new different things. I like the direction that they're going, but we'll have to wait and see for the set when it comes out in November.
Yeah. And then the last little piece of news we have here as well, the Infinity Wars Classic next set Revelations is launching March 23rd. Again, Infinity Wars Classic, a big, it's a digital card game, but it's a it's a big proponent of not having people, forced to pay for cards. So all of the cards are free if you're interested in that. We also talked about those mechanics and stuff a lot last week of, just different mechanics for card games. The appeal of you playing your turns at the same time and then things happen is pretty interesting and a little bit unique for Infinity Wars Classic. But yeah, for some reason, this like next week is just gonna be filled with a ton of card expansion releases. So if you play multiple card games, I feel sorry for your wallet over the next 2 weeks right now, but that's just the kind of time frame that we are in.
Yeah, we talked about it. Mid-March comes and there's an abundance of choice. So if you were struggling to find something to do, well, struggle no further. It's a different struggle now. It's a it's the financial struggle to keep up with
Yes.
them all.
Yeah, it is. But that's what we've got for news. What's our competitive and organized play looking like, Ron?
All right, and with competitive and organized play, we also have quite a few updates for you. We're going to start with Pokemon, where Pokemon Charlotte Regional Championships are happening March 24th through the 26th. I think we've addressed this once before on a previous show, so it's right around the corner for all those competitors. Just next week is when it's going to be starting. Um, that's for TCG, VGC, and Go. We also have an update for Battle Spirits Saga. Their launch events, as we mentioned previously, March 24th through 26th. They're coming around in Las Vegas, London, Melbourne, Australia, and Latin America. $350,000 prize pools and on site pickup for the product. So, some big hype around Battle Spirits Saga coming up. Um, we also have some news for Magic in competitive and organized play, March 18th and 19th. That's right, just tomorrow and the next day. This upcoming weekend is the Arena Championship 2 event. 32 players are going to be facing off for $200,000, and Magic World Championship. Um, Roman numerals are hard to read. XXIX 29, 29, I think. Magic World Championship 29 invitations. That's going to be streamed on Magic's Twitch channel, twitch.tv/magic at 9 a.m. Pacific. We have some updates for Yu-Gi-Oh! Competitive and organized play. The 250th Yu-Gi-Oh! Championship Series events will be taking place in April 2023 in 3 different locations. Those YCS events will feature the best Yu-Gi-Oh! Card game players from across the globe dueling for a chance to be named a champion at these historic events. 3 YCS events will be taking place simultaneously on the same weekend of April 1st and 2nd of 2023. And last up, more Yu Gi Oh! Uh, competitive news as well with WCQ regional qualifiers for Photon Hypernova are happening this weekend. Lots of stuff. Yeah, March. Go crazy, March.
Yeah. Yeah. You've heard of March Madness for basketball, but how about March Madness for card games? Because that's what it is. It's what
I
it's
think
feeling
everyone
like.
goes mad in March. It's just a thing.
Like, I'm just amazed. Yeah, I was looking through everything. I'm like, oh my gosh, like it's all just happening. And there's so many things, right? Like all at the same time. This weekend, next weekend, things in between. Like, oh my gosh, how is it all happening? Uh, yeah. So yeah, if you do play multiple card games, you're gonna have to pick and choose because it's a lot of events happening all at once. I just also thought that that was really, really interesting. 250 YCS events. I mean, those are in-person events. Those are like the bigger ones. They're not, but 250 YCS events. That is just amazing. Like
Yeah,
it's
it's a
been
pretty
going for
incredible
so
achievement.
long.
It's a
Yeah.
lot of people getting sent to the Shadow Realm.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah. A lot of things happening. So with all of these tournaments and all of these things that are going on, a lot of these card games announcing big, world, either worldwide events happening throughout the year or various, large prize pools. I kind of wanted to talk about tournaments with you, Ron, because there's not only those big prize pools and these events and like I said, the road maps for the whole 2023 competitive year for these. But then you also have things like Hearthstone, who kind of downsized their competitive system, but I feel like we've really started to see a lot more like grassroots and third party tournaments. So it feels like no matter kind of which spectrum you're on, whether it's you just want to go to your local game stores and play in these like pre release events, or you want to compete in a lot of like grassroots things, or you're looking to compete in tournaments for, the world championship type systems that some of these games have, whether it's your first time or maybe you're, even more of a vet to tournaments. But I just want to like talk about that and also give advice to people who might be wanting to get into that and start playing tournaments for potentially the first time as well. So I just want to ask first before we get into some of these tips and details. Um, you've played in some tournaments, and I know you've played in some ranging from like small local tournaments to things like a Masters tour. So can you share just a little bit about maybe like what it was like for you kind of getting into tournaments and how you maybe feel now after
Yeah,
playing in more?
absolutely. Um, so I started off, I got into Hearthstone tournaments when I played them from a friend of mine that I met on BattleNet. Just like, I think it was just randomly playing ladder. Um, we had like, we maybe ran into each other a few times, had some interesting games, added each other, and just got to chatting. And it kind of turned me on to the idea of joining Hearthstone tournaments, like always just different things you can find on Battlefy and all this different stuff. And really, that was eye opening for me. Just to see like this whole different world of Hearthstone that I hadn't really ventured into because I had just really played ladder, and it is quite different from ladder. You're not playing just a singular deck. You're playing multiple different decks, and there's a whole different strategy to go along with that. You know, you get to ban something, they get to ban something. There's a format you need to know, and so on. Um, and it kind of takes just a little bit of time and practice to really get comfortable with it, at least to the point that you don't feel like you're totally over your head when you get to like higher levels of competition. And another thing that really helped with that, I got to do a quick little plug, of course, for my favorite little Hearthstone community, which is Team Hearth League. THL is a place that I joined. dragonrider, of course, also plays in. We know plenty of people who play in THL, and it is a basically no stakes, every week type tournament that really gets you familiar with that kind of game planning, strategizing, and so on. It's that style every single week. You join teams, you play a season, you play all the way through until there's like a championship showdown. And it's a best of five, not only of yourself and another player, but five people on a team and their entire best of five. And all that just it really built up to feeling really, really comfortable with like, okay, I know as much as I think I could say there is to know about how to plan and play in this style of the game. And then from there, it was, I was fortunate enough to win a qualifier and qualify for a few Masters Tours events. And it's the same thing. It's just the same thing with way more pressure and way more stakes. So don't worry about it, right? Don't freak out. It'll be fine, and surely you'll win. Sadly, I didn't do how I wanted to do in the first couple. I wound up with I lost more than I won, and then in the last Master Tour I played in, I had an even game total. I went 4-4, which I was pretty excited about because that paid out. Um, but it's just lots of playing and experience builds up familiarity and comfort, and then you get have a better chance to do well.
Oh yeah, the building up that experience, like even I've been doing tournaments, and whether it's online tournaments or casting, I've been doing content, all this stuff for 5 years now, right? And even sometimes still when I play tournaments, I still kind of get the nerves, and I still kind of get
Hmm.
nervous. So it's yeah, depending on who you are or what you're looking to do with those, sometimes that might not go away. That's okay. You can also kind of think of it as try to turn those like the nervousness into like excitement. I try to do that too. I'm like, oh, maybe I'm just like excited, and that's why I'm nervous, or really kind of doubting yourself sometimes. But yeah, it's kind of interesting looking at this. I think for me, doing tournaments is something that, like you said, is very different than just typically playing the game, right? Like if you log into a digital game and you just queue up on ladder, but then you go to a tournament, it's very different. If you play a physical game, a physical card game, like playing at home with your family or your friends, is very like it's a very different feeling than going to a game store, going to a pre-release event, and walking in with the mindset of I don't know anybody here, right? I'm here to actually compete and play like competitively and not just for fun around the dinner table. So I think like for me, just kind of making that switch of recognizing, wow, this is its whole own like world. It's all so different than kind of what I'm used to. Uh, was something that I had to adjust to when I first started playing tournaments. There's a couple of things that you mentioned, and I think I definitely want to bring some of this up. But one thing for me that really helped me is making sure that you really look ahead when you're signing up for a tournament or you're going to be going to play in one. Really pay attention to the format and the rules of the tournament. Now, if it's like you mentioned, Hearthstone could have a couple of different formats, right? You could have bring 3 decks and ban one, or you could bring 4 decks and ban one. It could be like THL that you mentioned, where you're on a team, you're still playing your match independently, but maybe you have to work with others throughout the week to prep and stuff. But that's going to be kind of a different format even than just playing by yourself. Um, is it standard? In Magic, is it historic? Is it some other format? Is it a commander tournament? What is it that the actual game itself is looking at? Do you at some of those physical card game tournaments, are you only bringing 1 deck and then it's a best of 3? Do you have a sideboard? Is that something you need to pay attention to? So just kind of like knowing what you're getting into and being familiar with what to expect while you're playing is something that I think is very, very important, as well as the format of the tournament itself. Right? Is it a single elimination tournament, double elimination? Is it Swiss? Because obviously, if it's like a single elimination versus a Swiss, you could likely be playing a lot more matches in a Swiss than you would in maybe a single elim, like if you lose your first game. So knowing all of that kind of stuff ahead of time, really looking at that, making sure that you are aware and that you understand what those formats mean, and that you kind of even if you're a little unfamiliar, you can find out, right? You can Google it, you can ask other people. You could go check one out and just see, watch somebody else play, especially if it's in person, right? You could just go be a spectator for one, kind of see the flow of the tournament before you jump in. But I think that's just a huge one because, especially with like grassroots things too, like grassroots tournaments, every organizer and event is going to be different. right? Maybe one event, they run it and they're really on a time constraint. So they say, hey, we want to get through this tournament really quickly. So it's going to be single elimination. Maybe there's one that says, hey, we're going to be doing qualifiers to lead up to some other big tournament. So we really want the best of the best. So this is going to be, a 2-day full, 10 Swiss rounds or something event. And those are very, very different from each other in terms of, knowing the rules and maybe what you're going to be looking to prepare or the people that are going to be competing in those. So you don't have to like know every little thing. You don't have to read their like handbook policy and be able to like recite it from memory or anything like that. But just kind of being aware of those before you play in tournaments can be very, very helpful.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like you don't have to go overboard, but you need your bullet point like basic understandings of uh how the tournament is organized and what you need to do to maintain like minimum standards for what is expected, so you don't just get yourself disqualified right away, and then throw out your chances. But outside of that, then you can just focus on the game itself, and playing your best to do as well as possible. And to your point about nerves from earlier, it's fine to be nervous. Most people there probably are. Um, I know there's this one, I think, like pretty famous story about Bill Russell, who I believe won the most NBA championships ever. A guy won like 11 championships with the Boston Celtics back in like the 1950s and 60s. And I'm pretty sure he said that he threw up before every game. But he still went out there and won a ton of championships. It's not about like being nervous, it's letting the nerves affect you negatively. So if you have the right mindset, to like acknowledge and accept that you're nervous and then try to channel that into some kind of positive energy for yourself, that's where things can really go a long way.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I like that too. Just kind of recognizing like, hey, everybody else is probably really nervous too.
Yeah.
You never know too. Looking at people, like it might be their 50th tournament, it might be their first tournament, and sometimes you won't know unless that you ask them or talk to them. But it's yeah, it's kind of interesting because there's always that mix. I think another important thing is also knowing things like check in, whether it's an online tournament or in person, how far ahead do you have to check into the tournament? Is it only like a 15-minute check in? Is it a 30-minute? Is it an hour? Do you have to, at like an in person event, are you supposed to be there and check in and like register for the tournament the day before? Just knowing those kind of things, getting situated, getting yourself familiar with maybe what you'll need to know in terms of that is if it's an online tournament for like the digital card games, is there a Discord server that you might have to join where they're going to be posting, the announcements, or how are you going to get your info about who your opponent is? Is that going to be through a website or is that going to be posted in a Discord? Or if you're in person, are they going to print out a thing and, post it on a bulletin board right near the gameplay area? Just kind of knowing that. And so you're not sitting there going, oh gosh, the next round's starting. What do I do? Freaking out because I will tell you the first time I went to an in person tournament, it was a Hearthstone tournament. So we were playing, but I did that. I had no idea. I was like, I don't know. And then it's like, okay, cool. Like the tournament's getting ready to start. Wait, who am I playing? How do I know who I'm playing? And I just kind of like panicked and I was like, I don't know what's happening. And then, obviously those nerves were really kicking up because I didn't even think to pay attention to that. And then
Relatable.
of course, yeah, and
Very
then
relatable.
by the time the like, round 3, round 4 was happening, I was like, oh, okay, I just go over there and like find my opponent. Cool. Okay. But the first time I was like, I have no idea. Oh, panic. And then
Yeah.
I was really freaked out. So I just think kind of, thinking about how can you prepare yourself like that? I think when people talk about tournaments, there's this big kind of shift of talking about what decks to bring, how do you prepare that way, and that definitely is something that you may want to think about, especially depending on like how competitive you are or what level of tournament you're going to. But especially for somebody that might be going to their first event, I would say try to think about the things that are outside of the game, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think I have in our notes here as well. Okay, like if it's an in-person event, where's the bathroom compared to where you have to be? That was something big for me.
Yeah,
I was like,
that's a smart one.
because like for me, it's like, okay, as soon as the round is over, and especially with the nerves, like I'm a nervous peer. Okay, so like when I get nervous, I'm like I have to pee. So
And how
no,
long is break time, and where
yeah,
can I
like
get food? How quickly
yes,
can I eat said food? Yeah. Like it's all it's very relevant information that you may not think about before you dive into it.
yeah. So, if you're able to go, a couple hours before the tournament starts or the day before the tournament starts, and you can maybe scope out the area, or, if you're going to be playing in, you know, even if it's at a local tournament, right? Like a local game store, uh, show up an hour early or an hour and a half early. Kind of scope out, find out where the bathroom is in that store. You know, kind of see what the table setup looks like. So that maybe you're like, oh, okay, you're not showing up like right when the tournament's supposed to be starting and then freaking out. Um, know all of that. Yeah, oh, bring your own water and snacks. That's great too. If you're at a place that does allow that, some venues don't want you to bring your own stuff in, but if you can, absolutely, bring that so that you at least have something. If the breaks are pretty short in between rounds, or maybe even some of the tournaments might have round timers, right? Magic and a lot of those other
Hmm.
physical games, you might only have a set 50 minutes per round to play your match. And if your match goes for most of that time, you're not really going to have a break in between those. So being able to, know that you have water in your backpack with you, or you have a quick snack that you can have, while they're setting up the next matchups. Great. That's always helpful too. So it's just kind of like these type of things that I would definitely recommend, especially for the in-person events, right? Like if you're playing Hearthstone at your computer at home, obviously you know where the bathroom is, or you're gonna have, water more accessible or something like that. You know where your stuff is at your house. But just being aware of that kind of thing ahead of time at events or other places that you aren't as familiar with, I feel like is very important.
Definitely is. And I would also just say don't really be too afraid to pester tournament organizers. Like like for in-person tournaments, at least, like they're there for a reason. They have a support staff. If you're worried about something, just go up and talk to them and try to get some guidance on what you should be doing or where you should be or something like that. I was kind of nervous in my first in-person Hearthstone tournament experience. I went to DreamHack Dallas, and all the previous tournaments I had done were just online. So it was just an entirely different kind of circumstance completely. And I was like, man, I hope I'm not annoying the hell out of the tournament organizing staff, because I'd go up there probably like maybe at least twice per hour. Like, hey, what's happening now? What's next with the schedule? Who am I playing? Where am I supposed to be? Is this fine? Is that fine? Yeah, like not like super overboard, but just you gotta do what's right for you to put yourself in the right, I don't know, level of comfort where you can actually focus on the game itself and be able to compete without being super distracted or worried about outside factors.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I would say one of those factors too is also, especially in relation to like looking at the format, but I would say not only for in-person tournaments, which probably are going to be longer, but things like how long is the tournament going to last, right? Even if it's an online one or in-person one, you know, If it's Swiss, you can probably expect that it's going to last longer. If it's a single elim and you lose your first game, then you're out and that's it, and it's not going to be a very long tournament. But if you're having to wait, and if it's Swiss rounds, you have to wait for all of the matches for that round to be done, and then the next round will start. And I've also been to some tournaments where at one point they actually did schedule a break for like lunch, which I thought was kind of cool. It's like, hey, that's really helpful to know that there is that break specifically for lunch so that you're not, worried about like trying to run across the street somewhere to get food in between a round. Like, okay, I have that dedicated time. So, do they do something like that? Some events might offer food as well, right? Whether it's, the little like I don't know, maybe food trucks, or maybe they have something in the venue. If it's a local game store, sometimes they might do pizza for, pre-release events, things like that. That's always helpful. I'm gonna keep mentioning food because I love food,
What's important?
but but
Gotta mention
also
food.
yeah, but I mean also if you're gonna potentially be at a tournament for 8 hours, 12 hours, you're going to want to make sure that you have water, you have food, you're fueling your body, because especially if you're not used to that, or if you're somebody who maybe for your diet or health reasons you might need to eat something every couple of hours. If you're at a tournament table for 10 hours that day without eating, that's going to really really affect you. So I think those kind of things are incredibly important as well. I mean, and even some of the online tournaments, even playing from home, have gone very long. I've been in some, so or even casting, like some of those tournaments, they just go very, very long, right? So it's like, okay, just know ahead of time that you're going to have that. And yeah, some people in our live chat, thank you, are saying things like, even if you're hungry, that could affect your play, right? If you're hungry and you're nervous, oh, no, let me tell you, I felt
Yeah.
absolutely terrible that first tournament, that first day, because I was so nervous. I didn't eat very much. And then I was like, oh, I'm going to puke. I just felt shaky and dizzy. And then I was distracted with that. And then, then I was upset because it's like, oh, I wanted to play and I wanted to compete. And instead of that, I'm focused on my stomach growling and I'm not getting to enjoy actually being in the tournament.
Yeah, it's a different level completely from what you're used to if you're not doing a whole lot of in-person events and you're used to like online, which I think most of us are more used to online tournaments now, at least in the Hearthstone scene. But even beyond that, ever since COVID hit, it's definitely changed a lot of how we do our events. Um, but there's one last thing that we definitely I think need to focus on when it comes to tournaments. That is rest. If you're in especially like multi-day tournaments, I think ask any like big championship winner, whether it's Hearthstone events or other card games or even like athletic like sporting events, like over and over and over, you hear the champions talking about how one of the most important things that they did was make sure that they were well rested, because you function differently on a good night's sleep. Your brain is rested, you get to make better decisions, and that's huge in mental games, especially like any kind of card game that we're talking about. It makes a giant difference. Tired you does not play the same as you know uh, perked up, well rested you.
Yeah, yeah. And honestly, talking about that too, just if you are going to be playing, especially in something like an in-person event, I would also say there definitely is that kind of level of talking with other people, or even just kind of even a little bit of interaction.
Hmm.
Um, even if it's just greeting your opponent. Sometimes maybe there's a handshake. course, that's something if you don't want to shake someone's hand or something like that, I would just let them know that kind of thing. You're not comfortable with that, or you could bring hand sanitizer, that kind of stuff. I'd recommend that for any in-person event. Anyways, even before COVID, I did that. Um, but there is that as well. A little bit of like sportsmanship, saying good game afterwards. Uh, with online games, especially, like that's been a whole big thing, right? Like after an event, like after a tournament match, do you say GG? Do you say, GG, well played, whatever? Is it bad manners to do that? I, my kind of philosophy on that is, especially at an in-person event, whoever lost typically is the one who would like reach out their hand, say good game, or well played, and kind of congratulate whoever won. Whether you then go off and then you're upset because you lost, or you're going to be salty, that's fine. But, I would say just kind of keep that in mind, that there is that little bit of social aspect as well. Even if it's an online event, you may not have to deal with it as much in an online event, but in person definitely is something. So if you're also not used to that, it can feel really kind of awkward too. If you're like, don't know what to do. Like, okay, I'm meeting my
Yeah.
opponent. Like, hi, okay, what do we do now? We sit down and we do this thing. Like, I don't know. So that I felt incredibly awkward that first in person tournament I went to. I was like, I don't know if I'm supposed to like shake people's hands. Am I supposed to like look at them when we're playing? Am I supposed to like avoid eye contact? I don't know. Like I'm socially awkward in the first place. So I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like and then I'm like, okay. And then you get the whole like, okay, you're looking at your laptop to play, right? This is a Hearthstone event. And then I look up because I'm trying to read my opponent. And then they were looking at me. And then I'm like, oh, eye contact. This is weird. What am I doing? Am I supposed to look at them? Am I in trouble now for looking at them? Is that a thing? I have no idea. So, like, if you feel any of
Solid.
that too, I will say you are not alone. Totally a thing. Just be aware that people might look at you. It's okay. It might happen.
Yeah.
I know Itachi talked a lot about that kind of thing, like trying to read your opponent. Ron, you played poker. I know that's a big thing in like poker, kind of watching your opponents, trying to read their tells, read their expressions or reactions, like that kind of thing. So that might also happen if you're in person. That might happen.
True. I feel like at least Hearthstone wise, it's less prevalent in person tournaments that someone would be trying to read someone's body language to get a tell on what their hand is, because there's so many different indicators of what something could be relative to like poker. I think it's simpler to narrow down things and put someone on specific things, but the more knowledge you have of the game, the better like your deck and your opponent's deck and other things. You could maybe pick up on tells or something like that. Um, I think the most important thing is just do what's comfortable for you. If looking at your opponent makes you uncomfortable, just don't look at them. Look at your laptop. Look at your screen in front of you. They might be like staring a hole into the top of your head as you're like looking down, but that's fine. You know, it doesn't matter. What matters is you playing your game that's comfortable. On the flip side of that, if you're comfortable staring a hole into your opponent's top of their head, or having an eye contact stare down, go for it. Maybe that's your game. Maybe that's how you gain an edge to like try to intimidate somebody, or feel like you're gonna be able to pick up on what they're doing. Yeah, like Tito said, war paint helps, right? It scares them. Maybe against official tournament organizer rules, so check with them first. But if war paint is allowed, hey, go nuts, right? Um, but I remember like in my in-person tournament, it was cool. It was fun. I got to meet people that I wouldn't have otherwise met, and I like to try to make friends with people outside of the game. But it is this weird experience where while you're playing them, they are your mortal enemy. You must crush them. And then as soon as the game is over, it's all good. It's just a game. How's it going? I'm a real person. You're a real person. Nice to meet you. You want to go have some food or something, like set it aside if you can after the game is over. It's a whole different social context.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of the game, depending on your comfort level with like certain decks or cards or the game itself, and the format that you're going to play in the tournament, that could, again, if this is just like a local, for fun, like pre-release thing, and you don't really care about winning, you're just there to have fun. Maybe you don't really need to do much prep or prepare, much in advance. You just like kind of show up and have some fun and look at the cards. But obviously, as you go up in the level of like competitiveness or what you're doing, that's going to be even more prep in terms of the game and deck selection and that kind of thing that you might do. So that's where you can go and find a practice group or that kind of stuff. Definitely, if you're looking at like that higher level, I definitely recommend going back and checking out our episode where we had the Magic World Champion on the show and interviewed him. He did a great chat about that and like practice groups. But I kind of wanted to guide this conversation in terms of like, beginners and people just getting into tournaments, especially. So, you know, bring, yeah, we had someone as well. Thank you in our chats. Play a deck that maybe not, it might not be like the best deck, but if you're familiar with it, that also does help with like what Ron was saying, where just do what works for you, right? just bring that deck so you can get familiar with like the tournament format. Because if you have never played a tournament, especially if it's like an in-person thing, you've never done this, and all of a sudden you're trying to teach yourself a brand new deck because it's the best deck, it's what everybody says to play, you're going to feel incredibly overwhelmed. It could just really mess you up. It maybe even might put you off of playing tournaments. If you have a really bad experience, you're like, well, that sucked. That didn't go well. So try to take that one step at a time. Just bring a deck or play a deck that you're already familiar with. Get used to the tournament like environment first. And then if you want to do more, you want to keep trying it, then at that point, maybe you can start digging more into deck strategies and lineup preparation and that kind of stuff that's a little bit more involved down the line.
Yeah, I'll always be the biggest advocate of comfort. Comfort's like the number one thing for tournaments. And if you're trying to be the best, then you should probably take some steps to learn the best decks in advance and get comfortable on those decks before you go into the tournament. That would most likely be the way to try to ensure you have the best chance of success. But if you don't have time to do that, or you have other decks that you've been playing that are better for you or you're comfortable on, you should probably go with those rather than jumping into like a brand new thing and being just in over your head. Um, bring this tier one deck that everyone says is the best that you have two games on and misplay a bunch because you didn't see what lines you were supposed to take because you weren't familiar with the deck. Doesn't wind up being nearly as good as that deck that you have like 500 games on. You know every in and out of every matchup, and you know what you need to do even in cases where you're unfavored, and you can change like a bad outcome to a good one for yourself, and people be surprised like, wait, how'd you win with that? You were supposed to lose. Well, it's because I knew the deck.
Yep. Yep. That's definitely a big one, I will say. That's yeah, comfort is definitely a good thing. And I would say that applies to all the aspects, as you said. If staring, at your opponent while they're playing
With your war paint
is
on. Uh-huh.
yeah,
Yeah.
with your war paint, your all of that,
Make threatening
the
faces,
you
as
know
long as it's not against the rules.
That's right. Yeah. Then, like, if that's what's comfortable for you, go for it. But if you're also comfortable, eating a very big breakfast and then not eating again till dinner, go for that. If you're, not comfortable doing that and you're like, I need to eat something small like multiple times throughout the day, go for that. Because trying to make yourself as like accustomed and as used to kind of familiar and comfortable with the different aspects of the tournament is going to put you in a much better position for either doing well or even just it being a more enjoyable experience. Right? Like I said, if you're sitting there and you're like really hungry and you're shaking from nerves, and because you didn't eat, now you feel like you're going to throw up or pass out, probably not going to make for a very fun time.
Absolutely.
So, you definitely want to do that. And also on that note, I will say for comfort, like if you are able to go to, like if you're going to an in-person tournament, try to go with somebody that you know as well, so you're not also just showing up like by yourself, and then that just adds, bring somebody with you that you know, even if they're not going to play, but that way you can at least talk to that person like between games or something, just to help calm you down and help you be like, okay, this things are okay, like I know somebody. And hopefully that you do interact a little bit and maybe meet some new people as well. But
Yeah,
bringing somebody is a good step.
definitely very helpful. Feeling like isolated in a new environment probably doesn't help the feelings of nervousness and anxiety. So, friends, supportive people, if you have them available around, or try to make friends. But any of that definitely goes a long way too.
Yeah. And hopefully in the future, I can start going back to some events. And if you ever do see me at an event, do not hesitate to just, run up to me and be like, oh my God, hi, Don. I may not know who you are, but I will talk to you and I will, introduce myself. And I think I've shared the story, but my first in person tournament was at DreamHack Anaheim back in November of 2018. And, obviously, like I had my husband there and there was a couple people that I knew, but I was still very nervous. I was like, oh my gosh, there's all these like pro players. There's all these people that, like, for me, I'm like starstruck almost. Wow, all these people that like I've looked up to or they're such good players. And I'm there like, I'm a potato. I'm really nervous. And I'm like, I'm not going to do well. But several of them even came up to me and they had recognized me from content and different stuff. And I remember Peltire and Language Hacker. I'm sure that name's familiar for a lot of people. Both of them came up to me, introduced themselves, and honestly, like that meant a lot to me, and it made me more comfortable, especially since there was also only like 4 women there or something out of 200 players. So also in terms of that, like that helps make me a little bit more comfortable. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I feel a little bit more welcomed. So also that's another thing, maybe if you are somebody who has been to a lot of events and you see somebody who might be new or they look a little nervous, maybe go up to them, see if you can chat. Some people do not feel very comfortable in those social situations, but if there's anything you can do to slightly make somebody a little bit more comfortable or feel a little bit more welcomed, that's probably going to go a long way for their experience. And you never know, maybe you meet somebody, that ends up becoming like a lifelong friend, or, maybe they're very good. You've just never met them at a tournament before. And now all of a sudden, like after that event, you're going to be, practice, in a practice group together and have all sorts of success. You never know, right? So just be considerate. And like you said, hey, like you're a real person, I'm a real person, thing, people, hey.
Yeah, that's great. That's like at least for a lot of people, I feel like it's one of the big draws of the tournament. You might not necessarily even be, that invested in the outcome, but you go there to meet other people in the community. So, getting to like meet and greet with different people who share the same kind of interests is fantastic. And maybe you might want to hold off on the war paint until like the actual tournament starts before like you introduce yourself to people. Or maybe that's your thing. You go, yeah, you remember me? I was the war paint guy. It's to each their own.
That's right. That's right. Anybody that's watched BlizzCon, we all know the red shirt guy. Everybody knows red shirt guy. See, you know
There you go.
that
Yeah.
that's the thing. Find your thing. No, but definitely, tournaments can be a lot of fun, and they are in terms of if you really are looking to be competitive, they are a whole different thing than just playing online, or playing, with your family or friends or something at your dinner table. But they can also be a ton of fun. It's great to meet people. So I do hope that somebody, found some value in this. If you are going to be going to any events or trying out tournaments, especially for the first time, if you're going to try any of these tips, or, if you found any of this helpful, please let us know. I would love to hear about that. I want to hear about some people's like first, tournament experiences, and I hope that they're positive, but, also don't hesitate if it was something bad, like let us know. Maybe we can talk about that kind of stuff in the future, but definitely would love to hear how people, found some of these, or if you end up going to any events and try some out.
Absolutely. Always want to hear what people have to say about this, and uh, there's so many different things too that you can cover. That's like the tip of the iceberg for tournaments, but that's like the basics to get comfortable, and then you can dive really deep into like strategy and other things too. Um, but find your groove is sort of our big advice, big takeaway, and I hope that you guys get some value out of that, and we'd love to hear what you have to say too.
Find your groove, find the bathrooms, find food.
Yes, excellent.
that's, yes, that's the recap. All right. Any other closing thoughts there, Ron, before we move into our closing stuff?
Uh, Good luck. Just good luck in all your future tournaments, whatever it might be. Um, we wish you all the best.
Yeah, absolutely. Good luck. Good luck. I am excited to hear. Again, we have some like arena stuff this weekend, some kind of big event things happening next weekend. So, uh, good luck to anybody competing at those. And thank you all for joining us this week. We hope you enjoyed it. And, if somebody that or if you yourself may want to actually join us on the show, let us know. You can reach out to us at our top pin, or oh my goodness, you can email us at TCCG Roundtable at protonmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter, TCCG Roundtable, and our top pinned tweet there will also link you to our Discord. You can jump in that Discord and join us as well. You can check out the video version on my personal YouTube, dragonrider TCCG. Also, this recording did try streaming live both on YouTube and on my Twitch channel. So thank you everyone who stopped in and joined us for that. You can also find us everywhere you can find podcasts, in audio form. So if you prefer to just listen to that, you absolutely can. And thank you, as always, to Inked Gaming for being an affiliate. You can use our link to get a great discount, help directly support us, and find some really cool stuff along the way. And where can people find you individually there, Ron?
So you can find me streaming on my Twitch channel, RonMexico HS. You can find me on my YouTube channel at RonMexico HS, and of course you can find me on Twitter at Ron_HS.
Perfect. You can find myself on Twitter, DonnieDK. That's DAWNIEDK. You can find me on Twitch, YouTube, TikTok, all of that at dragonrider TCCG. And then also, if you enjoy the podcast, you can find me talking every week at the Doctor 3HS podcast, where we talk about standard Hearthstone. So, thank you all so much for joining, and we will see you at the roundtable.